Hello everyone, thanks very much for coming back to visit me at my channel. And for those of you who are new, my name's Warren and I'd like to give you all a big warm welcome to Warren's Team Talk. Now, what I've got for you today is a brand new series. It's called the Groundhopper Diaries, and what I'm going to be doing in this series is I'm going to be telling you about all the adventures that I've had visiting other grounds up and down the length and breadth of this country and overseas and all sorts of things. So it's going to be quite an exciting one. I'm quite excited about it because there's some really great stories to be told, I believe. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that. But the first episode in this, just because we've got the Euros going on at the moment, is about when myself and two buddies of mine, Mick and a mate of mine that unfortunately I've lost contact with now, but a guy I used to work with by the name, or he used to call him Chopper, but his name was Mark. And we all went off to Germany for the European Championships in 1988. A tournament which, if the press were to believe, was like a hooligans convention. Yet there was trouble. I can't say there wasn't, but it wasn't anywhere as bad as what the press would have you believe. And a lot of the press actually went out of their way to try and stir it up. But anyway, enough of that. Anyway, so before we move on, please remember to like the video that I've got for you today. Please remember to subscribe, and please, please, please pass it on to as many people as you think might be interested in seeing it, because it's going to help me to grow my channel and, you know, make it bigger and better and help me to bring out lots of new content for you. Anyway, so if you could do that for me, that'd be absolutely fantastic. And obviously, I'm hoping that you're all well and healthy at the moment and looking after yourselves. And hopefully soon we can get rid of this bloody virus. So yeah, hopefully there won't be much longer to go. We'll all get double jabbed. Hopefully I'm having my second jab next week. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so I'll be back again next Saturday, I think, with another video. And in that video, probably, I'm not 100% sure, but it'll probably be me carrying on my stories about following Arsenal. And it'll probably be from 1980 up until 1990, but I'm not 100% sure about that yet. So let's just wait and see. But there'll definitely be a video out again next Saturday. Anyway, enough of my waffling because I've been going on and on and on. And let's get on with it. Right, so here we are, everyone. Here's my story about how I went to the European Championships in Germany, well, West Germany as it was then, in 1988. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to start off by looking into what happened before we actually left England and what have you. So I went with two good friends, Mick, who was a Norwich City fan, and Mark, who we also used to call Chopper. I still don't know how he ended up with the name Chopper, but he was, and he is, as far as I know, a big Spurs fan. But the trip nearly never happened before I even got off the ground. I seem to remember that there were some issues with the English FA, who seemed incredibly disorganised, and they seem to have a couldn't care less attitude, actually, to be quite frank. We approached them because we wanted to make sure that we got tickets sorted out before we left, and we didn't want to wait until we arrived in Germany to get tickets for England's group matches. and at least not fall foul to local ticket touts or local criminals selling dodgy or false tickets. The English FA told us that we'd need to purchase tickets for all three of England's group matches and then both semi-finals, because they would not be selling tickets for England's matches in Germany. And I remember us having a conversation with the English FA about what would happen if, in the unlikely event that England made it to the final. And we were told, if my memory serves me correctly, oh, don't worry about that. We'll sort that out and let you know by making an announcement. Now, remember that this is in 1988. This is in the days before mobile phones. So how the hell they thought that this was going to happen, God only knows. But that's what they told us. So in order not to get the tickets that we wanted, we had to complete a form which asked for all our personal details, our travel arrangements and accommodation details. So first of all, we tried to get ourselves a package deal for the trip, which would include accommodation and flights. Now, the cheapest we found was for £630, which at that time, that was a lot of money. And after several failed attempts and negative responses, we decided to organise it ourselves. And finally, through a combination of good fortune, charm, stubbornness, and my broken schoolboy German, we managed to get our own accommodation and flights sorted out. There was a problem with one of our flight tickets when it arrived, which meant it had to be returned to be amended. But finally, this was sorted out. There was a delay with us receiving our match tickets, which I remember caused a great deal of anxiety and stress. But finally, they turned up 2 weeks before we left for our trip. So we decided to call ourselves for our trip the Football Beer Invasion, or shortened version, FBI. We got T-shirts printed with FBI on tour on them, and we had a 6'3" white banner made up with red and blue letters on it, which said FBI on tour. Before we left for Germany, though, we had some calling cards made up with the line "You have been visited by the FBI" on them, with the idea that it was a rather humorous, it was meant to be a rather humorous, like, sort of slant on the hooligan firms calling cards, and we thought we would leave them in bars and restaurants that we had visited for a bit of a joke and stuff like that. So we just wanted to, like, have a bit of a laugh while we were there and be friendly to people and try and eradicate this negative image that British people had overseas. Anyway, I also remember Chopper and I, who worked at NatWest Bank, were called in to see one of the office's most senior managers before we made our trip. He was also an ex-Arsenal reserve team player as well. And I remember he had a conversation with us about our trip. And he told us that he'd been instructed to tell us that if we got involved in any trouble in Germany or did anything to embarrass the bank, we would lose our jobs. And he finished his meeting with us by asking us to make sure we got him a German helmet, because he had served in Germany during World War II, but he was never able to get one. So, if we move on, let's have a look at how the tournament was, what the format for the tournament was, and the fixtures and all of that carry on. So the tournament, at that time, the European Championships was made up of finals, made up of 8 teams. So in Group 1, there was Italy, West Germany, Denmark and Spain, and Holland and England, Republic of Ireland and Soviet Union made up Group 2. It took place between the 10th and 25th of June. And like I say, the 8 teams had qualified for the tournament. The 8 teams were split into 2 groups, as I said, with the winners and runners-up in these 2 groups would qualify for the semi-finals, and then the winners of these semi-finals would contest the final. And we've been through the 2 groups and how they were made up already. So the games, as you can see, there's a map here showing you where all the games, all the venues for the tournament matches. And as you can see, I put arrows on showing you where England's 3 games were played. There was 1 game in Düsseldorf, which was for me, I was really impressed with the stadium there. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And then there was a game in Frankfurt at the Waldstadion, which was in the middle of a forest. It was bizarre. It was you had to walk through a forest to get to it. And then the Ireland game was at the Neckarstadion in Stuttgart. So anyway, so let's talk about our trip to Frankfurt. We've made a decision that we were going to base ourselves in Frankfurt and travel around from there. So the morning started early for me because I did not sleep well the night before due to the fact that I was too excited about the fact that I was due to go to a major international tournament for the first time. This day was going to be filled with drama, and the first major drama happened when I decided to cut my mother's lawn, as I knew that I would not be able to do it again for a couple of weeks, and I didn't want it to look like a jungle on my return. I'd nearly finished the job when suddenly a tiny piece of rock flew up and hit me in the eye. And so I had to make a short trip up to the local casualty to have a little bit of rock removed. Which the medics who attended to me, they're able to do it successfully and without too much fuss. The offending item was only about 0.5 millimetre across, but I do remember it was incredibly painful. And I had doubts before it was removed that I was going to be able to make the trip. Now, the rest of my travelling companions arrived just after lunch, and we were all able to watch the first game of the tournament, which Spain defeated Denmark by 3-2. And then after the game finished, we made our way to Gatwick Airport with a taxi. Now, the taxi driver was an old war veteran who, when he found out we were going to Germany for the European Championships, delighted in telling us stories about his exploits in World War II. And he managed to drop us up at the wrong terminal. And so we had to make our way to the correct terminal for a rapid transit train to the correct terminal. On arrival at the terminal, we found a lot of English football fans wandering around the terminal. And after enjoying a couple of beers, we got our flight to Germany, and the flight passed off without any serious incidents happening, which was a bit of a shock, given all the other drama that we had with this trip. Anyway, but unfortunately, it wasn't the end of the drama for the day. So on arrival in Germany, we went through a very detailed and in-depth process in the customs and immigration area of Frankfurt Airport. And then we were finally allowed into Germany. And after being ripped off by a Mercedes-Benz driving taxi driver, we made it to our accommodation in a very dubious looking part of Frankfurt. Now, on arrival at the accommodation, it took me about 15 minutes to convince the person on duty at the accommodation we had a booking at the hotel. We finally got into our room, and although to say it was a bit tatty would be an understatement, the blood splattered walls and what appeared to be a false wall was a bit of a worry, to be quite frank. Now, shortly after we arrived, we had a lot of shouting and glass breaking, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, what have we come to? And I'm sure that all that shouting and screaming was something to do with the fact that the guy on duty had allowed 3 British guys into their hotel. I don't think that the owner, if it was the owner or the owner was doing all the shouting, wasn't too impressed by that fact. Anyway, so on Saturday the 12th of June was our first match. We went to watch the Republic of Ireland play England at the Neckar Stadion in Stuttgart, and it was the day that it was obviously the day that England made their bow into the tournament. And as we had no idea where the local railway station was in relation to where our hotel was, we decided to get up early and go and find the railway station. Because the thing was, as I said to you earlier, we decided to base ourselves in Frankfurt, and we managed to get ourselves a 2-week railway pass, which gave us unlimited train travel in Germany, which was really handy, actually. It was a really good thing to get. So we quickly found the railway station and found lots of England supporters hanging around inside the station, drinking and just generally hanging out and chilling out. We then made our way to Stuttgart on the train, which was a 2-hour train journey, and that passed off thankfully without any dramas, which was surprising enough given all the other dramas that we'd had. So yeah, that was quite pleasant. We arrived in Stuttgart to find the place swarming with English and Irish fans, sitting, eating and drinking without the slightest scent of any trouble. This may have had something to do with a large, heavily armed police presence. And after consuming refreshments, we made our way to the stadium, which was the home of VfB Stuttgart, which we reached by taking a rapid transit service to the ground. And once inside the ground, we found Union Jacks and St. George Crosses flags on display on any available vantage point. So in our particular part of the ground, we unfortunately found ourselves stood in front of a huge skinhead who delighted in screaming particularly vulgar, abusive comments of a religious nature towards the Irish supporters and any Irish player who had the temerity to touch the ball. He and several others around him really got going when the national anthems were played, giving the traditional Nazi salute, which I found quite disturbing, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, unfortunately, England do have quite a nasty extreme right-wing following. So I guess it wasn't to be unexpected. Anyway, the game started, and after 8 minutes, the Irish took the lead through Ray Houghton after a defensive error from England's Kenny Sansom. And despite much huffing and puffing from the England team, a highly professional and highly organised Jack Charlton Irish side, there was no further goal scoring, and Ireland won the game by 1-0. On the way back to Frankfurt, we reflected on the day's events so far. We decided to freshen ourselves up, and when we got back to our accommodation and tried to find somewhere to have a quiet drink and a bit of a laugh, we went out and we quickly realised that our accommodation was in the middle of Frankfurt's red light district, and we had a few people of a serious dubious nature approaching us to try and sell us all manner of illegal substances or adult entertainment. Now, after having lots of problems finding anywhere open, we finally found a coffee house which was staffed by a group of Italians and was owned by an expat Derby County fan. And we spent most of the night in this place drinking and chatting before heading off down to the river to have a few more drinks and a chat about the day's events and football in general. So, moving on. So the 2 days after the Ireland game was spent drinking in and around Frankfurt and desperately trying to rescue our room, our accommodation in Frankfurt. What happened was that the drinking session had been preceded by a rather nice meal, but ended up with me passing out drunk on my bed, but my mate Chopper throwing up his dinner, and most of all that he'd drunk all around the room. And poor old Mick finally managed to wake me up so that I could help him clear up the mess that Chopper had made. We then went out again the next afternoon to have a quiet afternoon by the river after the previous evening's exploits. And on return to our accommodation, the receptionist guy informed me they had let out our room to a family. And when I inquired as to who this family was, it turned out that the family had the same family name as me. And luckily I had my passport with me, and I was able to prove to him that the family he was referring to was me and my 2 mates. And after our other long, heated and stressful conversation, he finally agreed to give me the key to our room. Give me the key to our room. Now, so on Wednesday the 15th of June, we England played Holland, which was our next match, our next adventure, I guess you could say. This game was played at the Rheinstadion in Düsseldorf, and this, like I say, this stadium was beautiful. I really liked it. And this game for England and Holland turned out to be a winner-takes-all encounter, as both teams had lost their opening game. The Dutch had lost 1-0 to the Soviet Union, which meant that to have any chance of progressing to the semi-finals, both the Netherlands and England would need to win the match, and whoever lost the match would definitely be heading home. The day before the game, I had called home, and my mother told me stories that were circulating in the English press that the Dutch supporters were planning to ambush us at Düsseldorf railway station. She also told me that people were coming up to her when she was out and about, asking if she had heard from me and how I was. Apparently, it was common knowledge in my hometown that I was in Germany, and she told me it was like I was overseas fighting in a war or something. And when we arrived at Düsseldorf, we were met by a large armed police presence, and they did not want to let anyone outside the railway station. And we managed at one point to make it outside to find another huge armed police presence. And through this presence, I could see that there were what looked like to me hundreds of Dutch supporters across the road. And after a short while, the German police ushered us on to waiting coaches, and we were driven to the stadium by bus. And on our bus, we had armed police standing in the sort of like, the corridor or in the aisle of the coach, whatever you want to call it. And the Dutch were just wandering around the city centre freely. So, yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, really. Remember us being given a lot of hand signals and signage by Dutch supporters. Not that it really bothered me any, but it was a bit disconcerting having armed police officers standing in the aisle with us, but there you go. I don't suppose they really had that much choice, really. Anyway, when we arrived at the ground, the police ushered us straight into the ground, which was about 3 hours before the game was due to kick off. And I remember feeling awestruck by the stadium because, like I said, I found it was an incredibly beautiful stadium. The game itself, though, it started well for England, and they hit the post through Gary Lineker, and then the Glenn Hoddle free kick hit the inside of the post and then rolled along the Dutch goal line. And then just before half time, the Netherlands drew first blood, thanks to Marco van Basten, who, in my opinion, is the greatest centre forward that's ever lived. I just think he's an absolutely brilliant football player. And England like equalised through Brian Robson just after half time, and then 2 further goals from Marco van Basten secured the victory for the Dutch and virtually confirmed that England's exit from the tournament. After the match, bizarrely enough, the German police allowed everyone out of the stadium all at once. No segregation, no delayed release, no armed police escort. I remember this game for a number of reasons, but the 2 main ones were the disturbing amount of England supporters who, during the singing of the national anthem, were giving the Nazi salute, and the performance of Marco van Basten, who scored a hat-trick for the Netherlands, and it was one of the greatest performances by a striker I've ever seen. He absolutely destroyed a young Tony Adams, and in my opinion, it took Adams nearly a year to get over the mourning that he suffered that day. And when we arrived back at Dusseldorf railway station, we were waiting for our train to take us back to Frankfurt, and an empty train pulled into the station, and the German authorities were making an announcement saying there is a train standing at whatever platform it was, I can't remember, which will take you back to Ostend in Belgium, and from there you'll be able to get back to England. The train is free of charge. You don't have to pay for it, so please go back to England. So yeah, that was the Holland game. So the next match that we went to see was on Saturday, the 18th of June, when Soviet Union defeated England 3-1 at the Waldstadion in Frankfurt. And this was the final game of England's Euro 88 campaign. And I have to say, an absolutely woeful performance from England. Throughout the game, I heard chants for Brian Clough and for Bobby Robson to be sacked. We took a train to the aptly named Waldstadion, which in England means the Wood Stadium, because the stadium was situated in the middle of a wood-stroke forest on the outskirts of Frankfurt. And in order to get to the ground, I remember that we had to walk through a wood and past an open-air swimming pool. The open-air swimming pool gave the passing England fans a lot of entertainment, mainly because of the number of scantily clad young ladies who were enjoying the burning hot sun. It was, like I say, a burning hot day, and one of the hottest days that I can remember whilst watching football. After the game, we went back to our accommodation, and as we had done the previous day, we headed down to the riverside because with fully armed with refreshments, because we did not want to get caught up with any trouble that we felt might possibly occur in Frankfurt, because we heard about all the stories of football-related violence that have been following England all around Germany like a bad smell. I'd also bumped into 2 lads from my local town who I knew enjoyed a good scrap, and they delighted in telling me all about the scraps that they had been involved in since they'd been in Germany, and that they were only here for the fight, and that was it. And this made me want to avoid the city centre even more. 3 days later, we bought a load of food from the local supermarket and returned to our accommodation and to try and listen to the coverage of the Holland v West Germany game on the radio, a game which the Dutch won by 2-1, which was a bit of a shock because the Germans were strong favourites to proceed to the final. But the thing is, I don't know how the hell we thought we was going to understand anything. I think my mate thought I would be able to translate the commentary, but my German isn't like that good that I'll be able to do that. But yeah, that's what we decided to do. So this was the final standings and results from England's group. The first game, obviously, England lost 1-0 to the Republic of Ireland, and Holland lost 1-0 to the Soviet Union. The next set of games, England lost 3-1 to the Netherlands, and the Republic of Ireland drew 1-1 with the Soviet Union. And in the last set of games, the Soviet Union beat England by 3-1, and the Republic of Ireland lost 1-0 to the Netherlands with a freak goal, as I remember. And then, so that meant that the final standings for the group were that the Soviet Union won the group with 5 points. The Dutch were second with 4 points. The Irish, rather unluckily, came third with 3 points. And England got exactly what they deserved, which was absolutely nothing, and finished bottom of the group. So on just a second. So our next outing for a match was we left, happened on the 25th June, but we left Frankfurt on the 24th of June because we planned to spend 3 days in Munich around the final. Yeah, so we arrived in Munich on the 24th, Friday the 24th, which was the day before the European Championship final, which was contested between Holland and the Soviet Union at the Olympiastadion in Munich. Like I say, we checked in to our new accommodation in Munich, but I have to say we weren't sorry to be leaving Frankfurt from our accommodation because it was an absolute dive. And the night before we left, we found out that that a neighbouring bar had been the subject of a drugs raid, and so we moved on to the final to Munich for the final 3 days of our trip. Thankfully, the accommodation in Munich was of a lot higher quality and not situated in the middle of a local red light district. The day of the final, which was contested between Netherlands and the Soviet Union at Munich's famous Olympic Stadium, we decided to take a trip to the Olympic Stadium to soak up some of the pre-match atmosphere, which was great fun. And I seem to remember that I think we bumped into someone on the way to the ground who was quite famous, like a commentator or someone, but I can't remember who it was. But we had a chat with them, and then we moved on. We then, after we'd been up to the stadium, we made our way up to the top of a hill which overlooked the stadium, but it was far too remote to be able to watch the game from. So we decided to head back into the centre of Munich, and we found a TV shop and stayed there watching the match on the TVs in the window with a little Russian guy. and about 200 jovial Dutch supporters who seemed just as interested in sweet talking a group of young German women as they were in the match. The match itself was won by the Netherlands thanks to goals from Ruud Gullit and a wonder goal from Marco van Basten, which many regard as the finest ever scored in the European Championships. Now, after the game, we took a slow walk back to our accommodation, stopping along the way to have a few beers, or Steiners, as the Germans like to call them. And as we were staggering along the road, we heard some English voices behind us, which we thought was a bit odd. And we turned around to see Jimmy Hill and Bobby Charlton and another chap. Now, they'd been working on the final. Probably Jimmy Hill had been anchoring the show, and Bobby Charlton had been there in a punditry role, I would imagine. Now, all three of them seemed to have had a good time, and we all had a good chat. And I remember Bobby Charlton took great delight in making fun of the fact that I lived in Sevenoaks, because sometime earlier we'd lost several of the town's iconic oak trees in a hurricane, and Jimmy Hill told me and my mate Mick off for not being Charlton Athletic supporters. But all three of them were very friendly and likeable lads, and I really, really liked all of them, particularly Bobby Charlton, really lovely fella. In summary, our trip to Germany for me was an incredible experience and a very enjoyable one. And yes, some of England's supporters did let the country down badly, but I remember a group of German police officers who we got chatting to told us that the England supporters' behaviour was no better or worse than German supporters' behaviour on any given Bundesliga weekend. In my experience, the British media did exaggerate the behaviour of England supporters and actively went out of their way to film it, and even tried to stir it up. And I remember witnessing a journalist asking a group of England fans where they could find England fans causing trouble. But as I said, it was an incredible experience and one that I'm glad that I had. So yeah, hats off to the Germans for organising a great tournament, and I had a great time. I really enjoyed it, and I know the other two guys did as well. It was great. Well, okay, everyone, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed that video. I certainly enjoyed making it. It brought back lots of happy memories for me. Yeah, so yeah, it was great. Great trip, great adventure, lots of really cool experiences and unexpected excitement, especially in Munich when we bumped into Bobby Charlton and Jimmy Hill. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video. Like I say, there'll be another one out next Saturday. At the moment, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, but it might be the story of my exploits going about watching Arsenal from 1980 up until 1990. But like I say, I'm not 100% sure yet, but so let's just wait and see what happens. Anyway, I hope you're all okay, that you're enjoying the Euros. Good luck. Just want to say good luck to England against Ukraine. Later today, I think it is that they're playing. I think, yeah, later today. I'm recording this on Friday, so I think, yeah, it's later on Saturday that they'll be playing. So, yeah, let's see what happens with that. But anyway, before I go, please remember to take care of yourselves. Please look after yourselves. Make sure you look after each other. I hope that we're able to share plenty of love and happiness and joy around the world at the moment. And yeah, please also remember, don't forget, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and please pass it around and pass it on to people who you think might be interested in seeing what I've got to offer. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye.